Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. And a very warm welcome to Christmas Eve's edition of the DC Universe Daily. Yes, it's Christmas, Christmas, Christmas. It's not Happy Festival of Offerings. It's not Happy Holidays. It's Happy Christmas, because Christmas doesn't have to be anything to do with a god or Jesus or religion. It could be about the lovely lights, the lovely music, the beautiful Christmas films, the feelings of compassion and joy it gives you. So it's okay to say Merry Christmas. So a very warm welcome to the Christmas Eve edition of the DC Universe Daily. I believe that James Gunn is just a front for the old DC WB regime. It's my opinion. I don't know this for a fact, but all the red flags that we've been seeing in the past few weeks confirms this to me. And the number one thing that confirms this to me is the removal of Henry Cavill as Superman. Because when Walter Hamada was running DC Films, when he was the president of DC Films, he basically blacklisted Henry Cavill as Superman. Surprise, surprise, The Rock brings him back, and all of a sudden, James Gunn comes in and is going to replace him with a younger model. No. I don't even think it was James Gunn's decision to replace Henry Cavill. As I said a few weeks ago, before Cavill was even removed, I told you that nothing has changed at DC and WB. And the same people are running this ship as they were before. But they had a plan. In my opinion, it's my theory, so I'm going to go with it. And it's my channel, so I can say whatever the fuck I want within reason. I believe they had a little bit of a brainstorm. How can we get away with this yet again? So what they thought is, James Gunn is already making movies for us, right? We'll get him to front this then. He'll be able to sell ice to the fucking Eskimos, right? He can sell a lie of a brand new, shiny DC universe that will be different to the old one and will be comic book accurate. A shiny brand new Superman, a shiny brand new Batman, yada, yada, yada. It's all a lie, everyone. I don't even believe DC Studios is a real studio. Is anyone actually working there? Have they actually appointed anyone at DC Studios? Something else I mentioned on this very channel, from this very camera, from this very laptop a few weeks ago. These have been my suspicions. So I predicted this. Again, call me freaking Nostradamus. But it's all coming, look, it's all coming true, isn't it? It's just the old regime all over again. Zachary Levi's back as well, dissing what Zack Snyder did and what David Ayer did and stuff like that. And by the way, David Ayer will never, ever have his Ayer cut released by this regime. James Gunn is lying to you, David. He never, ever had any intention of releasing the Ayer cut. Guess what? Because he doesn't actually have any real power at DC Studios, because I believe he's a front. He's just a front man, because he's the one who can sell this shit, this next level Justice League to us, the fans. And when it was first announced, I was going, oh my God, Peter Safran and James Gunn. Oh my God, it's so amazing, man. And I was being shiltastic. I was so excited. But then the red flags began, and I started to notice things. And I started to realize that everything in, the honeymoon was over. The honeymoon was over very, very quickly. I want to congratulate James Gunn, by the way. Let's just say he's not a front. I want to congratulate him. For years, the Snyderverse stands have been divided, and you helped unite them. I haven't seen a unification before within this movement since the calls to release the Snyder Cut. The trends are getting high again, and you lot are in a lot of trouble. So, congratulations on confirming your placement as the dumbest studio in Hollywood. But I do think that James Gunn is just a front, and I don't really think he's really making any decisions. And I just think other people are making decisions and getting him to deliver those decisions publicly, to announce them. So January is going to be very, very exciting now. What kind of decisions are going to be made? Are we going to have an announcement for a director of this Superman movie that James Gunn is apparently writing? Are we going forward with this, or will they bend the knee and bring back Henry Cavill? Well, I can tell you something. Henry Cavill still wants to play Superman. Yes, he does. And he's not going to tell you off for fighting for him. Zack Snyder has never told you off for fighting for him. And these two men won't. We know what happened to Henry. It's absolutely disgusting, and we discussed a little bit yesterday, to try and ask why. What is the hatred for Henry Cavill? Now, they're actually, Netflix and WB seem to have started this toxic campaign against Henry, where they're trying to say that he made female members of the Witcher production feel very, very uncomfortable. Now, of course, I don't believe this because, well, let's just say I know some females who have worked with Henry. And I know that, Henry is adored by females, not just because he's attractive and stuff. He's a gentleman. I remember Millie Bobby Brown saying in an interview, I asked Henry about his girlfriend and he said, I want to keep that away from this. So that's how respectful he is. So, Henry Cavill isn't the problem here. Of course, they're going to try and put forward that he's a bad person. Henry will never, ever get involved in any of this nonsense, this shit talk, because he's a gentleman. James Gunn claims that there's no issue between him and Henry Cavill and everything's good with them. Well, that's not really the truth, is it, James? But Henry's too much of a gentleman to be rude to you. Maybe you should try that. Maybe you should try being a gentleman as well, James. So there's millions of people around the world who still want Henry to be Superman. And, the people will win in the end. The people will win in the end. It's as simple as that. Because, as I've said in many videos before, this is not about just the Snyderverse fandom. You fucked with the wrong Marine, WB and DC. And if it was your decision, James Gunn, you fucked with the wrong actor. Because this is not just the Snyderverse. This is Superman fandom in general. Even people, as we've said many a time before, who don't actually like the films Henry's been Superman in, love him as Superman, and can see the potential of him being a great Superman. He's never been really given the chance to do that. Although I do love him in Man of Steel, and I think he's great in BVS. He wouldn't be my kind of choice of how he conducts himself as Superman in that film. But, Snyder was telling a story. And he was getting to the Superman we know and love from the comics and the Reeve movies and, the Lois and Clark TV show. The Superman we know. We were getting to that. Snyder just believed he had to earn the right to get to that. And that's okay. But he was a great contemporary Superman. We've been fighting for many years now for a Man of Steel 2. And that fight continues. So what you're going to see now is, the continuing trends, the continuing fight against James Gunn and the DC studios that doesn't seem to have any employees there. I don't know. Have you seen any reports of them employing anyone at DC Studios? As I say, the whole thing is bullshit. It's it's garnish everyone. There's no real DC Studios. There's no real DC Universe. DC Universe is just a rebranding, as I've said many a time, of the DCEU. You're being conned. It's the greatest con in the world, offering you something shiny and bright. It's going to be like the MCU. Zachary Levi said a very interesting thing, that the DCEU as it is hasn't reached a broad enough audience. Well, that's interesting, Zach, because your film Shazam never reached that broader audience anyway. Didn't even make 400 million at the global box office. What do you say about that? So maybe you should be fired as well. How about that? Because this is a man fighting for his job. He's getting desperate. He's fighting their corner in some desperation that he keeps his job. Now, the same rules will apply to Shazam! Fury of the Gods as they did to Black Adam, because we know that Zaslav is a kind of a really nervous pervert and he's very reactive. So basically, if your movie succeeds, like The Batman, or we'll talk about The Batman in a minute actually, but if your movie succeeds, like The Batman or Joker, you get to stay. If your movie doesn't make the bacon, whether it's a good, bad or indifferent movie, whether you the fans like it, it's going to go. That's it. Nothing stays. So if Zaslav was here when the first Shazam movie came out, there would be no Shazam! Fury of the Gods. There'd be no Shazam! Sequel. So let's see how these movies do. And I think this is another issue I've discussed before as well, that what they're doing is with the DCEU, they're just going to decide on box office what stays and what goes. So Henry Cavill wasn't able to uplift Black Adam, so he's gone. That's the mentality. And I haven't told you this. I told you this was the mentality, didn't I? Before Henry was even fired and replaced with a younger model. So this is going to happen to Shazam, The Flash, Blue Beetle, which there are now rumours that, that's going to be the first chapter of James Gunn's DC Universe. Don't forget, Blue Beetle was a film that James Gunn had absolutely nothing to do with. So it's pretty funny, isn't it, at this stage? What I want to say about the Batman is this. I was laying in my bed this morning. I've had these suspicions about the Batman for ages, that maybe Matt Reeves isn't the nice kind of nerd fan that we think he is. And in fact, he's just another part of progressive Hollywood. Is the Batman woke? Yes, the Batman is woke. But worse than that, his Riddler, who really is nothing like any Riddler we've read in any comics before, is actually an analogy for you and me, male fanboys. And basically, male fanboys that get angry at directors they once stand. That's who the Riddler is in the Batman. Think about it. He's standing Batman. He's calling him vengeance, right? They think they're all on the same side. And then Batman tells him, I'm nothing like you. I don't believe in what... And he's going, no, no. Basically, it's a parody movie. Basically, the Riddler is you and me because they hate their customers. That's what it is. And, you can, if you actually watch this film, you can actually see it for what it is. It's a well-made movie, don't get me wrong. Well acted, well written, all of that. I kind of enjoyed it. There are some good moments, of course. But basically, the Riddler is supposed to be you and me. The fandom menace kind of thing. Now, I'm not part of the fandom menace, but basically, they don't like men. Hollywood hate their own customers. They did it in the recent Scream movie as well, where they were hating on their own customers yet again. They're at war, and we've already seen a variety piece that next year doesn't bode well for Hollywood and the entertainment industry because they rubbed up us, their main customers, the people. Right, men are the ones who predominantly go to cinemas. Facts. Men are the ones who buy the merch, who buy the Blu-rays, and stream shit. I mean, I don't know about you, but like with the DC stuff, I buy it on hard copy and digital media as well. That's the kind of money me and you put into films and Hollywood. And they hate us and they want to drive us out of consuming their stuff. Well, congratulations. You've driven us out, but you just haven't brought anyone else to replace us because they wanted us to be replaced with the LGBTQ community and minorities and women. They don't want us. They don't want us. They want to decide who watches their stuff. Not really good for business though, is it? Right? So they've created a toxic environment where they blatantly hate their own customers in their storytelling. And this is exactly what the Batman is. Now, as I say, look at it a little bit deeper and tell me I'm wrong about what the analogy for Riddler is in that film. So we now know where Matt Reeves is and who he is. He seems like a really nice guy, doesn't he? Seems like he's on the fan side. But secretly, and he's a little bit more two-faced about his hatred for us, he did it in his movie. It's all there, isn't it? So yeah, and he made 700 and whatever. Whatever people say, it made good money and it's going to get more. And that's basically, this is what Zaslav's going to do. Zaslav isn't going to care whether it's a good movie or a bad movie. He's just going to care about the box office. If you've made a lot of money, you'll be back for more. Some of you will be saying, well, isn't that right? Let's talk about the Snyderverse a little bit as well. If the Snyderverse was launched in the late 80s or the beginning of the 90s, Zack Snyder would have been lauded as a pioneer. But you see, we're in an era where people prefer bags full of fresh air. And basically high art in comic book movies is no longer appreciated. We all appreciated what Burton did with the first Batman, but then everyone hated on him for Batman Returns because that was huger, high art. And they called it overcrowded and bullshit things like that weren't even true. It wasn't overcrowded, it was perfect. We had great characters, great character actors playing these iconic DC characters. It was great. But ultimately, history will tell you that high art isn't respected. So now we're going to change DC live action into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, who don't really make good films, but make a lot of money. Although they haven't been making the money they used to, especially this year. Is it the end for superhero movies? Well, wait to see. I think next year is the year of Rebel Moon. It's going to be very interesting what Zack Snyder has to say in the marketing, in the interviews for next year's first Rebel Moon movie. I'm very excited. We're going to get to see Zack Snyder content again. It may not be DC, but we'll see anyway. Look, Zack has got a habit. When he's asked about stuff about DC, he doesn't shy away from it. So it's going to be very interesting what he says. He's clearly going to say, oh, look, I'm doing this now, blah, 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 because he is doing this now. He's not making DC stuff. He wants to, but he can't. But there may be some honest opinions thrown in there as well. Whatever he says is going to, he's never got, look, I may be wrong, but I don't think he's ever going to say, look, my fans, stop it now. That's enough. He's never going to do it because he's upset. And he's angry about how he's been treated and how he was robbed of the opportunity to finish off his arc. Wouldn't you be? I would. You've got a story arc. You feel you're doing nothing wrong. You're working hard. You're creating great, CGI. You're writing great stories, It's unique and there's an audience for what you're doing. And the studio dump you because a few people complain on the internet and because you're not making $1 billion a movie. And that's the kind of environment we live in now. So, they've decided, let's bring in James Gunn to front this bullshit. This manipulation, as I said on top of the show, that, this is brand new, this is shiny, this is really exciting, this is going to be comic book accurate, we're going to do this one and that one. Have they even got the money to make great DC movies anymore? We know this is a company in debt. Is James Gunn going to be fronting a low-budget DC live-action universe? I think so. I think even the budget of the MCU films has gone really down in Phase 4, as we can see from the VFX and different elements. Is this what we're heading for with James Gunn's and Peter Safran's DC universe? I think so. So I don't believe we're going to be getting the quality that some people think we are. Now, when they were first announced, Gunn and Safran, I was excited. But you just have to look at the facts here. Safran was already producing DC movies when Hamada was here. So I think Hamada's still around. And I think Emmerich is still around. Emmerich wasn't fired. He was given his own production company, which would basically be still working with WB. So look out for a new production company name on top of the new DC Universe movies and TV shows and animation and gaming. And if it is Toby Emmerich's company, we know exactly what's going on. This is something I quietly suspected when they announced that Emmerich was going to be given his own production company but wouldn't be leading Warner Brothers Pictures anymore. But the new co-chairs of Warner Brothers Pictures, two very good, experienced people, Mike DeLuca and Pam Adby. Let's talk about them. Let's talk about former Blade producer Mike DeLuca, who wanted to keep Henry Cavill, who wanted to do a Man of Steel 2, who had already appointed and had a discussion with the creator of Peaky Blinders, Stephen Knight. And, Stephen came up with a really, really good concept for a Man of Steel 2, which would involve Brainiac. So it was all going to be very exciting. It was in the works. When they brought Henry back for Black Adam, it was in the works. And it was even the original plan, we've discussed this already as well, that Mike DeLuca was going to run DC Studios. And, he was actually going to populate DC Studios and it was going to be a real studio. I do want Mike DeLuca to run DC Studios eventually. I think that is the way to go. Mike DeLuca had a vision of taking the Snyderverse, taking Snyder's actors, and just improving what they were given. Getting rid of the Hamadaverse and what they were trying to do. The Hamadaverse wasn't successful at all. It was another calamity. I don't even know what the Hamadaverse was. Now, it's very difficult to talk about the Flash movie because obviously I saw a test screening. I didn't see the finished article. But what I saw was, a really well-directed movie by Andy Muschietti, but there were issues with the way they were trying to soft reboot the DCU. The DCEU, should I say, as it was then. Think about this for a minute. Joss Whedon's Justice League was supposed to be a soft reboot without starting totally again. The Flash movie from Walter Hamada was going to be another soft reboot that refused to start again. And James Gunn's brand new DC universe is another soft reboot that refuses to start again. I would have supported a hard reboot. Even though it's tough with all these wonderful actors we've had, at least it's fair on everyone. And at least it's new clay and you get to mould it. But I don't believe there's any genuine attempt here from James Gunn or any of these new people running this so-called DC Studios. any attempt to create something wonderful and huge and exciting for you, the DC fans. And if you believe that, well, I can't convince you of anything different. You've probably already unsubscribed from following me, or you stopped watching this video. I'm here to educate you. You will have to wait and see, and then you will know that I was telling the truth. But look at how consistent I am with my little gut feelings and predictions. I told you nothing had changed at DC, and it hadn't. Look where we are now. This is the Hamada plan, by the way, boys and girls, and everybody else, however you identify as. This is the Hamada plan. It is. Why is the Flash movie still unlocked? Now, we know that they're not going to use Patty Jenkins as a Wonder Woman director anymore because they knew they couldn't. It was impossible. And obviously getting rid of The Rock as well isn't a big controversial decision. But the Henry Cavill thing is the one that's destroying them. It's why Zachary Levi was doing a video, and that's why James Gunn had a Twitter thread. And, you know, they don't know what to do next. It's total defense mode now. Because if you're a ruler who makes decisions, when the Sheriff of Nottingham decided back in the olden days to, take extortionate amount of taxes from poverty-stricken people who couldn't afford to pay him, and then punish them, if they didn't pay up, he didn't then go on the kind of megaphone and go, no, making excuses and shit. That is my rule. That is my rule. That's what's going to happen. If you fuck with me, you fuck with the wrong person, right? So a good ruler doesn't make decisions and go, no, I'm a nice person, I'm still friends with Henry Cavill, blah, 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 and to keep on trying to justify those decisions. That's what they're trying to do, because they're scared. Because these so-called clever people, which they're not, didn't realise that the Snyderverse fans would be united in the firing of Henry Cavill. Now, of course, they're basically, the Snyderverse fandom, of course, are calling for more than bringing back Henry Cavill as Superman. They want the Snyderverse restored because they know they have more power now. The Snyderverse fans have got more influence than they've ever had because the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery is very, very reactive, as we've said many a time, and the proof's there. He's going to judge everything on box office. So if Shazam! Fury of the Gods succeeds, Zachary Levi gets to keep his job. It's absolute hilarity. If the Flash movie succeeds, I think that Andy Muschietti will be directing most things DC. Maybe he'll even get to direct the new Superman film. This is what they're going to be doing, judging everything on box office. They're going to become kind of accountants, if you like, which sadly modern day, movie Hollywood studios have become. It's not about, I like your take, I like your vision, we're going to keep with you. That's what they used to do. The first Terminator film wasn't overly successful. It did well in the video rental market. But you got T2 because you had a really great director with a vision. So you gave him a second movie and it paid off. Many people at Fox didn't believe in George Lucas's Star Wars vision. But there was one guy there who was actually, on the board of directors who was backing him because he could see, look, he didn't understand Star Wars. He didn't really have much faith in the casting of Star Wars. In fact, they were all shitting themselves about Mark and Carrie and Harrison being cast because they were unknown. But they backed a really talented man and it worked. That's old Hollywood. New Hollywood is they don't back anyone. I mean, they just employ the same old people. Back in George Lucas's days, they were going to film schools and they were looking at film school students and they were bringing them into Hollywood and they were seeing this new talent because they knew that, the younger audience could relate to these, these new age, generational shifting directors. But there's, all we do is getting the same people all the time. Like James Gunn, this one, that one. It's just the same directors, the same actors. Nothing's new. There's, it's not on talent anymore. And it's blatantly not on talent anymore. And, but what we're seeing here with DC is that it's really quite funny. I mean, look, I'm not inspired at the moment by DC at all. It's all about my Doctor Who fandom right now because, and I don't get many views from my Doctor Who videos, but I will continue to do them because I love Doctor Who. I love DC. My passion for DC has always been here, but my passion is dwindling because they keep on doing bad things. This is a bad thing. This is a bad thing to have James Gunn as a front man to do the same thing that Joss Whedon was attempting to do, Toby Emmerich was attempting to do, Walter Hamada was attempting to do. What have all these leaderships got in common? They all didn't want Henry Cavill as Superman. So that really proves it to me, everyone, that, you know, there's nothing new going on. DC Studios isn't a real studios, and it's just bullshit. And James Gunn is the front for all of this because he's a popular director. He's a rock star director. I probably think that a lot of you think that James Gunn is one of the best directors ever. Well, he's uncomparable to the iconic directors that we grew up with or people of my age group. He's nothing like that. Maybe James believes he's as good or better. This is a man who wrote a Scooby-Doo movie, Dawn of the Dead movie, right? He's a guy who's done like 4 comic book movies and a TV series. That's what he's done. And a few other things. He did Sliver as well. So this is the director that everyone thinks is the best fucking thing ever. People actually think he's the only director out there. It's actually hilarity. So they've got this really kind of rock star director, if you like, to front the old plan. Because DC Universe is the old plan. It's Justice League, the Flash movie. It's the same plan. It's probably the same multiverse strategy plan all over again. People keep on asking me, are you excited about The Flash? I was when it was first announced. I was so hyped. And you remember me. If you've been a long-time follower of this channel, I thought, yeah, Walter Hamada's great. This is going to be great. Andy Muschietti. Wow. But I didn't know they were going to replace, you know, Superman for Supergirl. And stuff like that. I didn't know that at the time. When I found that out, it's been another disastrous year for DC fans. We'll do a video and talk about it. And we'll go back to how they postponed those 4 movies and changed their dates and lots of different things. How we went from one studio ownership to the other and how we thought that would give us hope. And it didn't. So we will do a video talking about, you know, the past 12 months at DC. And how we've just regressed. We've regressed again. What? As soon as you think you're given something, we were given Henry Cavill back and then it was taken away from us. Just like that. Why? Because Black Adam didn't make the money. That's it. You understand that? This wasn't James Gunn's decision to fire Henry Cavill. This was David Zaslav's. That's the reason why The Rock's gone and Henry's gone. Because of box office. You can get rid of The Rock. It doesn't matter. He's irrelevant. He's certainly irrelevant to me. But Henry Cavill, a man we've all embraced as Superman. He may be 37, 38, but he deserved the Man of Steel sequel at the very least. Whether that movie made another 600, 700 million and wasn't going to make $1 billion, $2 billion, doesn't matter. 600, 700 million is still really good. And Man of Steel made, what? Just shy of 700 million at the time. But it's money, right? Why does everything... This is how greedy they are. They don't want a little bit of money. They want a lot of money. But you see, in old Hollywood, were happy to pick up movies, you know, high art, and make some money from it, and then do the blockbusters that weren't about high art. There was variety in the industry. That's why nobody goes to cinema anymore. There's nothing to go to cinema for. They've driven the independent movies out of cinema because big studios like Disney are taking more theatres, more screens for longer time. It's disgusting, the kind of stuff that, you know, Quentin Tarantino has educated us about. They did it to one of Quentin's movies as well. And this is the industry, and this is why they're in trouble now. And so when people say to me, trust James Gunn, why should I? James Gunn is a con artist. That's what I think. There's been times I've respected James Gunn a lot, and I thought this is the real deal. But in terms of DC, this man is a con artist. He's here because he was a part of the MCU, which is another rock star entity. It's a rock star cinematic universe. The most successful cinematic universe, but certainly not the best. It's not better than the Back to the Future trilogy. It's not better than the Indiana Jones movies that we saw. I even like, you know, I'm not a hater of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull anyway, but I'm just saying. So the MCU may be the longest running, most successful franchise in terms of money and longevity, but it's not my personal favourite. But people think it's all about the MCU. Oh, the DCU is now the MCU. Isn't that exciting? No, it's not. James Gunn is conning you. He's pointing to heaven with that white light and saying, oh, yeah. Give up on life and go up there. It'll be fine. I promise you, by the time you go out there, it won't be white. It'll be dark up there and you won't even be able to see what's going on. You know, this is what happens. He's part of the big con, just to continue what they were going to do in the first place. James Gunn is a front for the old regime. This has been Christmas Eve's edition of the DC Universe Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wife, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection, and I'll see you again in the next video. Until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.